When talking about the new game, Stealing the Horizons, there's one word that holds more weight than any other word in the game: momentum. Momentum is a popular word that at its base feels familiar. It's a word we use to describe anything from a downhill fall to a point swing in a sporting event. For Stealing the Horizons, momentum is much more than that. It's the driving theme behind the way the game is played, and how the game was designed and invented.
I was inspired by computer games that I was playing online in my 20s. Deep sci-fi games, but they were objectives-based games and had a team element. It was objectives-based and it was team versus team. So, a bit like your typical capture the flags. But I saw the potential there, I suppose, and it never really left me. And it just reached a point, Corey, where it had too much momentum not to pursue. Like, I would play other games and think, my game approaches this differently. Wow, I should really finish my game because I think it offers something here. Do you know what I mean? But I'll tell you something, really interesting, and I suppose that's why I ended up pushing really hard to get this to the market, is because at a point where I'd written a certain number of rules, the game became something entirely separate to what I was trying to create. It just became its own game that I could then play against and challenge, and it would challenge me back, which might sound a bit weird, but I basically created something that was bigger than all of the rules independently. And at that point I thought, well, hang on, I've got something here.
Stealing the Horizons is a skirmish based, and I hesitate to call it this, but war game. Instead of giving you a target and an enemy to kill, Horizons offers you a puzzle and an objective. The game itself is not about tabling the opponent, but rather maneuvering around your opponent to complete your overall mission. What sets this game truly apart for me is a unique activation system, aptly dubbed the momentum system.
So one of the big features of the game that we iterated a lot on and went back and forth on was the momentum mechanic, and I think it's really one of the places where the problem-solving nature of the game shows through, because you have a stack of action tokens that you could, in theory, just take all at once, but a lot of the times you want to pass the momentum to your opponent so that you can see what they do and react to it. And it really helps to balance like the first player advantage of being the first person who gets to go and do everything, or the last person who gets to clean up the board.
Where it's your turn, you have the momentum and you're moving your units. But if you do a number of objective-related actions with your troops, momentum transfers to your opponent and he gets to immediately respond to what you're doing. So what that means is you're always engaged and you're always thinking about the consequences of your actions.
And we wanted to kind of represent like the momentum of a battle, right? Like things shift and the focus shifts, and we wanted that zoom cut from one unit to another as things ping pong around. We really wanted that feeling to come through.
But I've played the game, 100 times, probably 1,000 times. But I've never had the same game twice, because even if I do the same actions on the same battlefield with the same units on turn 1, by turn 2, the nature of my opponent's subtle changes have meant my choices are completely different by turn 3. And it's crazy to say, but that's what the rule set can do.
This mechanic offers the player a certain kind of weaponized problem solving. Because the initiative or momentum can shift back at any time, you're really forced to think through the order of all of your moves. The emphasis is on you to be in control of when that momentum can and will initially shift. But to shift gears away from the mechanics, let's talk about art and lore. Stealing the Horizons offers the player a new viewpoint on an old story. We are catapulted head-on into the ageless story of colonizer and native peoples. In this case, it's the mining corporation of the XMP versus the rightfully guarded population of the Descendants.
One of the other things that was very important to us early on, Dave and I had some really in-depth conversations about the theme and the tone of the game and the story that Dave wanted to tell.
Certainly I grew up in England, and we kind of, you've got English imperialism, which, was everywhere I looked. I mean, I live in Australia now, which was a colony. The feelings I suppose I grew up with was that we're part of an empire, and that just means that you go and take things when you want them, unless they can stop you. And then you find other ways to get them, I suppose. So I was exploring it from that world. And that really opened up. Once we're in deep space and we've got people that are motivated to take things from new worlds, that really opened up the opportunity to write the game in that universe. From exposure to the Horizons, which is what we meet in this game. I mean, the game's called Stealing the Horizons, and that's because you've got these really powerful artifacts which are being discovered on this ring of planets in deep space. Rumors start spreading of these new worlds that are being discovered, perhaps by pirates or traders. And on there's these really powerful artifacts that have mysterious powers. And so it draws in things like the mining corporations with their mercenaries, and they decide, okay, these are powerful, let's go and secure these as resources.
Now, this was a story built from small moments of lovingly crafted lore and built into something much, much bigger. So much care was afforded to the story side of the game that outside artists were brought in to make sure it received the attention it truly deserves.
We decided to bring in some really exciting writers to help form the world and tell the story from a perspective that wasn't ours, because this is a story about people that have went through things that kind of align with some historical parallels here on Earth, and we want to make sure that we were telling the story from the side of the people who had been colonized. And it was important to us to bring in voices that represented that.
We've taken more of a look at the indigenous peoples of these planets, and because there were people there before, and there are these horizons, which are these artifacts, which for them are sacred, and we've explored their position and what the artifacts mean to them, and what sacred artifacts even means to people that have that kind of view and belief.
We had a poet write poetry from their perspective, and we wanted to tell the story from their perspective, so that was very important to us.
We brought in cultural consultants, specifically Liam Stevens, who's wonderful, was really great to work with. He's worked on much bigger projects. He's advised on Tomb Raider, and he advises on, I suppose, how to build authentic indigenous cultures in a respectful way. And Liam would just challenge every decision I made on the look of these people. Like, I was like, oh, they've just got, maybe they're wearing a cloak, and he's like, okay, well, hang on, what's the purpose of that cloak? And then how long does it take to make that cloak? And from that, a simple couple of questions, we get the specific cloaks that the Descendants are wearing, which take hundreds of hours to make by hand to offer protection in the right areas for the kind of battle that they fight. And the end result is something quite marvellous, really. Like, I'm really proud of those, and I know Liam is as well.
Now, the care and concerns of the creators even extend out to the consumer as well. On their Kickstarter, they're offering multiple levels of this game with their new product line, making it accessible to all parties. They've made it abundantly clear, price should not be a boundary for their game.
We've got the base game, which is going to be your core box set, which is $89 start, and that contains 4 factions, which is 24 card standees with some beautiful art that you may have already seen, that really brings those characters to life. You've then got all of their unit cards, all of the components that allow them to do their abilities, their unique actions and abilities on the battlefield. People that aren't super motivated by miniatures, you've still got a full game there with the card standees, which will allow you just to experience the board game side of things. But if you want the more immersive experience, we've got the full miniature set you can completely upgrade.
You know, we have something that feels different than the other games on the market, and I think that hopefully this can be a skirmish war game that's more accessible to people who have not played them in the past or held off because of whether it's the monetary buy-in on a skirmish game. We wanted to offer an affordable standee option if you don't care about the miniatures. So I hope that people check it out and have a fun time with the game is my biggest thing.
Okay, so I'll reiterate my earlier point. The word momentum carries the heaviest weight when coming to this war game, not only because of the aptly named mechanic, but because of the sheer force that is the speed and impact this game has on the skirmish market as a whole. Stealing the Horizons is a game with momentum, plain and simple, and if you're not careful, you may just get swept up in it.